Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I'm going to do some painting and some live chat. So as I'm painting, I'll answer questions, just talk about whatever you want to talk about. I couldn't think of anything else to sort of do with this time because I'm still testing out how to set my camera up and my microphone and just make sure that the lens doesn't do that sort of thing. I've set up my camera, but it keeps refocusing, so it causes a few problems as we go. So what I thought I would do is I've got some unpainted miniatures from the Untitled board game, and I'm going to go through the process of priming them and painting them so you can see how that works. And you can have a chat along with me if you want, or this will wind up being an experiment and I'll never do it again, but let's see how it goes anyway. So first thing is I've got some paints and I've bought really only the prime colours, otherwise you wind up spending a lot of money just going and buying paints, and I just don't see the point in doing something like that. So I've bought white and I've bought black because you have to have those colours, and then I bought the primary colours. So this is actually red, although it looks like orange, it's actually red, a yellow, and I've got a blue, and these are going to be my paints for today. On top of that, I've got my little mixing tray and so forth, which I'll bring into the scene a little bit better so you can see what's going on. I've got something for just drying off my brush for dry brushing, and I'm going to start with a brown bear. Now when it comes to brushes, I know a lot of people say get decent brushes, but look, you can get away with just having some cheap brushes and maybe one or two really good brushes, and nothing more else is sort of required. So what I've done is I've bought myself a really good brush from the game store. It's a Games Workshop Citadel brush. It's not really detailed or really small, but it's small enough to do the job. I'm getting old, my eyes aren't so good, my hand's not so still, so doing a fantastic job's just not going to happen anyway. And then I've got myself a basic dry brush as well, and a few sort of just rough looking brushes for just doing little bits and pieces, nothing sort of special. Now the first thing I'm going to say is you can spray your miniatures, that's not really a problem, that's fine. Spraying a miniature will reduce your time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to solve all of your issues, because even when you spray, you're going to leave certain areas exposed that aren't actually painted, that'll still need to be brushed over, or you're going to have to lift it up and spray it from a different angle. I haven't painted for years, so this is going to be interesting. First thing is black. Usually when it comes to a dark colour, I would start with a dark base colour, and black is probably the first colour I'm going to use. Now I know a lot of people say water down your paints, but when you're putting your first coat of paint onto your miniature that's hopefully been cleaned off, I haven't worried about taking all the mould lines off because I'm just going to attack or damage the detail on the miniature. I've cleaned it with soapy water, but getting the paint to stick the first time is actually really difficult. So what you want to do is don't water down your paint. What I suggest you do is just apply it fairly quickly with a brush, as thick as you can, and that will sort of reduce your hassles and having to redo things later on. So there's nothing fancy about it. Your first application doesn't need to be really clean and tidy. In fact, you don't even need to worry about getting in all the crevices because you just won't. Your first application is just to get paint on. One of the hassles with paint is getting the paint to stick is the first issue, and all you got to do is just get a rough coat. Now when it comes down to painting things like walls and furniture, which I have experience with, it's just getting the first coat of paint on, and after that any additional paint going onto your miniature will be a lot easier. Now I suppose I really should have got myself something like a little container to hold on to and some blue tag this thing together, but now that I've sort of started, I'm kind of committed, aren't I? Anyway, so now I've got 3 of these, so what I can do is I can apply a rough coat of paint to this, let this dry, come back and show you the different stages. So I haven't done a perfect job, Literally, I'm just trying to get paint onto the miniature so that it will stick and I can come back and redo my black later. Okay, so there's the first one. And then I'm going to grab the other two because I want to actually do all of them. So I've got two more. So you can see the different stages as we go. I've also got some snakes that I'll do as well if people are interested. I'm not necessarily sure that, I don't want this to take forever, but I thought I would give this a go, and here we go. When I was sort of planning today, and I didn't have much of a plan, but I wanted to sort of test out and make sure my camera wouldn't zip in and out. Spent a bit of time yesterday trying to figure out that problem, which doesn't seem like it's been solved, unfortunately. I was thinking it would be kind of cool if I did a video or a tutorial like this, ran it for a long time, had the camera set up, and instead of doing my usual thing, maybe do a tutorial on combat or making skill checks or some other topic and run a longer video. I can do that on the weekend when I've got a bit of time, particularly on the Saturday in New Zealand because I'm not working, so that's a lot easier to actually achieve. And I haven't seen anybody do something like that, so I thought that would be kind of cool. Anyway, all right, so that's pretty rough. I'm going to have to grab some more paint. Now I did actually buy spray-on paint, so it's not like I don't have spray-on paint, I do, but like I said, it still requires you to do some brush work anyway, so I just don't see the point in doing that. And the other thing is, it's really expensive. You could actually buy your black paint, brush it on. If you don't mind the extra time sort of putting your paint on, it's going to be a lot cheaper for you. I know a lot of people say, well, you know, the spreading and it's not just the time factor, Fred. The spreading of the spray paint is going to be more effective than you brushing it on. You're going to lose less detail and stuff like that. That might be the case. I mean, you can spray a lot of miniatures. But, you know, I thought this would be low-tech so people don't have to spend a lot of money, which is why I've only gone for the primary colours and black and white, so that we have to mix colours as we go. And I've got a colour chart up so I can have a look and see what my colour chart sort of looks like. Okay, so I've used a big brush. I've applied a lot of paint to sort of just cover things. At this point, I'm going to put that brush to the side because I want to use a slightly smaller brush to get in. And this brush here's got a stiff bristle, just like the other one. But it's a smaller brush, so it should make it easier to actually get at things. Oh, okay. Well, I'm in New Zealand, so those little bottles are going to be a different price if you're in a different country. So this here cost me about $4.50 New Zealand, but you can buy this particular paint online, and it's probably the cheapest, one of the cheapest paints that's actually any good on the market. I know my brother does a lot of painting, and Valerio, it is one of the best paints out there. He swears by it. He uses it for his airbrushing, so you can buy it online. And I don't know how much it would be American or Canadian, but yeah, you can buy it off certain suppliers online, and it's pretty cheap. If you go to a game store, you're going to pay premium price, and it's going to be a bit more expensive. So that's something to bear in mind. Also, too, there's no reason why you can't put, if you can find a decent, really cheap paint from a Chinese market or a $2 shop or $1 shop, or I don't know what you have in your country, just a really cheap market or emporium, and use that as a base coat, and then all the rest of your painting is going to be applied with a better coat of paint, then that'll save you a bit of money too. Anyway, getting back to what I was doing. Hopefully that answered your question, David. Alright, let's make sure that brush is not going to go hard on me. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning. I've already painted most of these just a little bit, but I'm going to go back to the first one I started with, because with the light, hopefully it will have dried a little bit more. I'm going to have black fingers by the end of this. It's sort of the... you can, look, truthfully, if you buy things online, I mean, you must have bought stuff before. Buying online, it's going to be a lot cheaper, okay? I would stay away from Games Workshop. Games Workshop Citadel paints are expensive. The Tamiya paints, expensive. And not necessarily that great. Okay, I'm going to add, at this point, because I need to get into the crevices, I am going to actually add a bit of water, but I've got to be careful how much I use. Okay. Alright. So we're trying to get all the crevices. When I was learning to paint, there was a guy that I knew who was the handyman in my workplace, and he was teaching me how to paint and how to apply things like putty and so forth. And he said, Fred, the mistake people make is they try to do it all in one go, and it just doesn't work. It's best to actually do it in stages. So that's what we are doing. The other thing is that, you know, once we start applying it, other paint over this, even if you miss a few patches, it's not going to really matter too much. Oh, let's try to get inside his butt. His butt's going to be the tricky part to get at. Oh, let's turn him. There we go. Paint up the butt. Get him in the tail. Around the leg. Now, I did a couple of videos on cleaning miniatures and taking off mold lines, so if you're looking for that sort of information, there are videos out. I mean, I've done some videos, but other people have done them as well. There's a lady who I'm subscribed to on this channel called, is it Elena13? Elena13 does really short videos. They're like maybe a minute or two, and she communicates a lot of information really fast. I really like her style. She does things in a way that makes it easy for people to sort of squeeze that sort of information into their day. All right. Alright, so without touching it too much, so a quick paint over it with a big brush, a slightly smaller brush, and at this point we've really got it pretty much covered. So we can put it aside. I'm going to grab the next one, because as I said, I want to try and do this with 3. So the next one looks like this one's mostly dry now, and we will add a little bit of water help get into the corners. I am so glad I put paper down. There is black paint all over the place. Hopefully it doesn't get on my monitor. I've got my monitor on my computer set up pretty close to this so I can see what's going on, and just in case the picture or the zoom moves out. Looks like I got a bit of a storm coming. I can hear things getting battered around downstairs. It's about 11 AM in New Zealand. Okay. Now it's funny how one of the hardest miniatures to actually find are animals. You know, when you're looking for just simple things like animals, bears, wolves, actually quite hard to find those sorts of miniatures. I've had to delve into other things like $2 shop plastic toys for kids, stuff like that. Okay, let's turn that around. And alright, we might need to squeeze out some more paint because I am not getting in there. Yep, I am out. It's time to reload it. I'll put that down. If you're doing a really light colour for a monster or a miniature, I don't advise using black. Sometimes it's actually better to use white as your base rather than black. That just means you don't have to do so many coats to get that light colour to come through. Black, it makes it a lot harder. Okay, in the mouth, because I want the mouth black. And up the butt again. I really should have got myself a stick-on piece of blue tag so I could hold this thing at the base a bit easier. This is going to be very, very tricky. In fact, I might step away for a second and grab some because I'm pretty sure I got some behind me. Tried to keep everything close by so I don't have to run around and find stuff, but sometimes that doesn't work out. Okay, I think, oh no, a little bit. See, this is the thing, you know, there's no way I'm going to be able to spray into some of these locations. Getting between the legs and up the butt, in the mouth, it's really hard. Alright, so there's my next one. I'll drop that. Alright, I'm going to grab that blue tag because that's going to make life a little bit easier. Okay, alright, I'm back. I've got my blue tag, and for now, I was actually trying to figure out what I could attach it to. I was going to attach it to the bottom of this container, but I'm probably going to need the paint at some point, so maybe something larger. Let's see if this works out, because that would be... There we go. It's going to work out a lot better, I think. How's it going, Overlord? How are you doing? So I thought I'd do just a paint day. Just muck around, have a chat with people, see if people are interested in this sort of thing. I'm not necessarily the best painter. I'm going to say it now. And I haven't painted for years. Whereabouts are you from, Overlord? Oh, a little bit of water. Yeah, one of the things when you dip your brush in the water, just don't go straight for the paint. Put it off to the side so you can get more water off your brush. It's really watery. One of the things I noticed when I was putting paint onto these miniatures, because they are, you know, they've got no paint on them, is if it gets too watery, it actually takes some of the paint off, particularly if it's not properly set, and you wind up having to go back over it again. Now let's go over here, which is why I don't generally try to water the paint down too much. Oh, doing great. Having lunch here in Alaska. Oh my gosh. Needle files to file. Alright. Fair enough. And an emery board. Actually, as it happens, now that you say that, I do have my own needle files. I bought these from a sort of automotive accessories store. And, you know, you get a whole bunch of them and they're really cheap. So you don't have to go into a game store and buy those expensive ones. You can just go into any kind of hardware place. Often hardware stores will sell them, or somewhere like a car accessories. all those sorts of different places. I bet you can get them from one of those Chinese markets as well, the cheap places. Anyway, back to my painting. Oh, this is so much better. Oh, that's so much easier. I just can move it around. I don't have to hang on to it. It's not so fiddly. My only hassle is going to be underneath the foot, because I can't reach it now that I've stuck it to this thing. I was looking at some of my brother's work, because he stopped painting for a while, which I thought was a terrible idea. And I think that was a product of his girlfriend. Or, no, sorry, not girlfriend, wife. Wife saying, no, I've had enough. And he was miserable. So he's gone back to it. And he bought himself this really impressive looking magnifying glass. And he showed me a couple of images of his work. And my gosh, I don't know how he manages to make stuff so small. It's this tiny head. And he's painted all this detail. And I was like, how does that work? I could never do that. Really, all I'm doing today is trying to sort of show you the basics and hopefully paint up my brown bears so they can be used later on. I've got about 2 or 3 brown bear miniatures, and I don't use them very often. Yeah, this was so much easier when I was 20. I know what you mean, David. It's like, okay, I'm going to paint some miniatures. Yeah, right, that worked out well. Okay, let's try to pop this thing off. Oh, come on. It's off. There we go. Put them down. And see, here is my problem. Any place where I watered the paint down, I can see it starting to seep away. Getting that first coat of black on is always the most difficult part. Painful. So I've got to stick it back on again. One location followed by the next. Okay, at least this one isn't too bad. The other one I obviously put too much water on. And I'm going to sit this thing, I think probably I'm going to sit it a little bit further away. If I move this and chuck this closer to a lamp, that ought to work better. And that one is, just let that dry. Okay, this one here, it is separated again, so I have to put more paint on it. It's really annoying. Yeah, David, I totally get it. The eyes are the nightmare. That's the thing that really makes it a mess for me. As soon as I start looking at anything that's small for too long, I just can't see what I'm doing. Benefits of youth. Eyes work properly. Even with glasses, I could wear glasses, but it's the same with playing pool. And my eyes weren't as good after I needed to start wearing glasses, because I don't get a true picture of the world. It's slightly distorted, just enough to make the angles hard to actually shoot for. And that same thing sort of applies to painting. Well, that fixed that up pretty quickly, even though it's separated. I just got to wait for it to dry. So I'm going to just wash out my brushes and leave that close to my lamp. Hopefully it'll dry faster, although that's probably unlikely since I'm using lamps that generate as little heat as possible, so I don't wind up with heat build up and I just get the benefits of the light. Okay, now to make brown, which is going to be my next colour, I'm going to have to mix some colours. So when it comes to making something like brown, I'm going to need 3 colours, and that is your yellow, your red, and your blue. That'll create brown, and that container there is no good to me now because it is covered in black paint, so I need a new tray. I'll grab a new tray from behind me. I'm so glad I had them behind me. I don't have to run around the house looking for little bits of plastic or plastic containers. There we go. All right, so don't throw out your plastic containers, particularly the lids, because they're perfect for mixing paint with. Yep, and you need more than one. I mean, you can have a little paint palette. I mean, I know you can buy them. I just don't see the point. Why would you go buy a paint palette when all you need is a plastic container lid? That's it, nothing more. Okay, so first thing, I need to make sure I mix this paint and separate it before I try putting it together. So I have to drop it in 3 different locations. I actually, considering how much brown paint I'm going to need, a bit more maybe. And in this case, I'm going to be using my dry brush for applying. Eater of crabs, good day and good morning to you. Yeah, mixing. I think I'm going to use a different brush. I'm glad I brought so many with me. All right, let's open this blue up. Ugh, this is what I don't like about the Citadel paints, okay? They're expensive. The squeezy bottle idea is fantastic because it's easy to apply the paint and get it out onto your palette or onto your container lid. Okay, that makes life so much easier. Whereas Citadel paints, really expensive paint, and when you break these things open, there's just paint just goes everywhere, which is probably about to happen. Yeah, resting your wrists up against something, certainly that can help. I'm in a really odd position because when I was setting up my camera, the best way would for me to be just pointing the camera down towards me, but it's actually to my side, and as a result of that, I've kind of got to twist myself a bit, so I'm not sitting straight at my desk. I'm actually sitting on a slight angle, trying to maneuver my arms so I don't stick my hands in the way too much. Okay, all right, let's get the paint out. It's blue. I have no idea what sort of brown I'm going to get, but you know, when it comes to any kind of colour, if you're not happy with it, you can darken it up with black, or you can make it lighter with white. And that's the easiest way to deal with that. Although you can use, to lighten it up, you could also use yellow or darken it up with blue, just by adding more blue. Alright, so that's that done. Well, resting your wrist on something. So for example, when you're painting, I'm holding the brush right now, and you'll see that I've put my wrist on the table, okay? So that as I paint and move around, I've just got my finger movements and I don't have to worry about my arm shifting. And that's going to help actually deal with any kind of detail, particularly when you've got to paint things like claws and teeth and eyes. Anyway, let's see if I can mix some paint. I think we'll just shift stuff from there. Let's see how that works. And then from here. It is changing colour. I'll turn it around so you can see it better. You can see this is the brown that's forming. I'll add more of my red, more of my yellow. Now because I'm just dry brushing, I don't really need quite as much paint as I would when I was applying my black. That's just because, you know, as a general rule, you're not actually putting that much paint on when you dry brush. Now, if my brother was here and I said the word dry brush, he would say, Fred, layering. The new thing is layering. Dry brushing is an old idea. You don't dry brush, you use layering. Okay, well, layering is a much more complicated skill. It requires a bit of practice. Dry brushing is for the the likes of somebody who is not really familiar with painting that well and is not very good at it, or just struggles, and I feel that dry brushing is perfectly fine. So that's my view anyway. Okay, so this is my dry brush, and when you want a dry brush, you want something with kind of really thin bristles, not something that's really stiff, because you're trying to apply really small amounts of paint, and you don't really need anything other than just a light bristles and a wide brush so you can apply to a big area, and that's it. There's nothing much else to it. Now when you're doing this, get your tip of your brush dipped in paint, not too much, sorry, burping, and then you need to brush off onto something. Now this is already covered in black, so I'm turning it over. Brush off onto here and try to get rid of some of the paint that's on your brush, just to start with. And then you're going to find your miniature that you want to paint, and then you're going to start applying your dry brush, and try to apply your dry coat once your first coat's dry, which is why I'm doing 3 at a time, because as I'm working through this, I'm allowing time for things to dry. So I'll pop this off. It's coming off. Put that down. And as I suspected, by putting it by the light and away from me and having 3, this is pretty much dry. The paint's still soft, so it can come off, so I've got to bear that in mind. And we just stick it on. But I've got my other 2 beers sitting out of the way, drying away, and I'll come to them in shortly, and we'll apply brown to them as well. Okay, so taking my brush, and then when you're applying it, try to go across the detail. So apply like so. I don't know if you can necessarily see that, but there's a small amount of brown coming off onto it. And if you feel it's not enough and you need to apply more, yeah, okay, all right. I'm going to just try brushing it off on the palette and see if that, because that actually didn't produce quite as much, and I need you to be able to see what's going on. Alright, so brush across the miniature. Okay, that's better. So I applied it, take a bit off on the palette, and then apply, and you'll start to see, hopefully, some of the brown coming off onto the detail and creating some well, just some detail, essentially. That's it. We want a brown beer rather than a black beer. And I'll just make sure. You guys need to let me know if the video or the sound is no good, because I can't check that. If I turn on my speaker to my computer and listen, then it's going to interfere with with my microphone. And the other thing too is, just because I can see a reasonable picture coming through at my end, I don't know if that's the same for you wherever you are. Sound is fine. Thank you, David. You know, I keep getting people saying the sound is fine when I'm doing the live streams, and then when it pre-records, I think I've said this a couple of times, when it pre-records and gets downloaded to YouTube, they normalize everything, and the sound changes and people can't hear it. Apparently a few people have had to turn the speaker up on their computers so high they're worried about blowing them. I wish they wouldn't do that. It's created a lot of hassles for me. I've had to try and source different microphones, lapel microphones, and actually, I thought that sort of stuff wouldn't be too hard to get hold of, but shipping stuff to New Zealand is actually quite difficult. Okay, so I'm applying really small amounts, so this could take me a while. I'm going to do this a bit faster. If that means that things don't come out quite so fantastic, then so be it. Okay, get rid of paint. Oh, don't forgive it, but although you're not really going to see that. Oh, Comic Book Jedi 1. Yeah, hi, how's it going? You know, I had a look at your YouTube channel, Comic Book Jedi, and have you done anything recently? Because I mean, I keep looking at it. I know you've done some stuff in the past. I kind of found it interesting. I hope you're keeping up with it. I know time is always a factor. Okay, so I'm going real slow here, so as a result, you might be noticing that it still looks like a black bear, but trust me, at my end it is actually starting to turn brown. Okay. Alright. And really, you've got to decide how much of a brown bear you want it. I mean, is it going to be really deep brown or a light brown? Up to you. And I'm trying to stay away from the snout because I would prefer the snout to be black. Yeah, I noticed that. It's hard, to actually find time to actually do stuff. I was kind of annoyed at the fact that YouTube had gone with, rewarding people who did a live stream every day compared to somebody who spent, like 10 hours putting together a video, trying to make sure it was all good. And, because you just don't get suggested, your videos just don't get seen. You just disappear into non-existence. But, yeah, I've adapted. I've learned how to cope. Okay. Alright, so that's very fine brushing of brown. So it's not overlord. What does that mean? Algorithm. Okay, yeah. Alright, let's pull that off. And grab another one and shove that on. Now every time you're painting your brown on, you want to go with lighter colours so that you're getting more definition, because the light, as you're going from dark colours to light colours, it's going to stand out more. Okay. Alright, let's try that again. Brush off. And on we go. The computerized system YouTube uses to do what you'll describe recommends feeds, etc. Feeds, etc. Yeah, the logarithm. Yeah, they change it constantly. I realise that, but it has made things a little bit more complicated. A lot of the channels that I follow that are smaller, they're good. They make good videos, but they just don't come up on the search very often. They're so far down the search bar, and if they're not really far down the search bar, they're often not suggested videos. Most of the stuff that's coming up is Nerdarchy, WebDM, obviously the stuff from Geek and Sundry. Who else? Dawnforge Cast, of course. And nothing wrong with their channels, but yeah, it does make it harder if you're a smaller channel to actually pick up subscribers, get people to watch your stuff. Even stuff that's totally unrelated to your search engine, their stuff will pop up even if it's not really matching the search. It'll still be first because there's just more views, and they put out more videos. Oh, come on, little hair, come here. There's a little hair there and I can't get it off. Oh, gotcha. Beasts of War used to blow up my feed to the point I had to remove them. Really? Oh, okay. Anyway, where is my brown? My brown is so dark, you probably figure I'm just painting black on here. So I'm definitely going to have to use a lighter colour in the next run so that you can actually see stuff changing. And I honestly have no idea how long I'm going to run this. I figure I run this as long as it takes to get the beer done. That might wind up being a long time. So don't feel like you have to stay for the whole thing. There's nothing wrong with me later on grabbing this video, trimming the front, trimming the end, and just time-lapsing the bugger and making it a lot faster so that you can just see the process at a faster pace. This is the problem with dry brushing brushes, is they don't survive very long when you dry brush, because you having to go everywhere. Okay. Well, he is not black, slightly brown. Are these owl bears? Actually, no, it's a cave bear from the Ashardalon board game. And I did a video on them not so long ago, but yeah, I'll put that over here, and I'll bring the other one over so you can see a bit more of that. No, I'll leave that by the light. That light actually, surprisingly, is actually drying up the paint. Because I'm painting 3 at a time, it's actually working out pretty well. All right, stick you on. Oh. If I'm not in the middle of the screen and I need to move myself over, you guys just let me know. All right, so my brown paint is almost dried up. There we go, and apply. I'm going to be really generous this time. So I've done each one slightly different. I'm probably applied more paint each time I've done a beer. Just been a bit more ruthless. Anyway, well, let's see if I can get some more paint on here. Yep. And I don't really want to water the stuff down. I mean, I could, and I will if I have to. But the problem with watered down paint is it works if the paint is really thick. I mean, really, you know, like it's so thick that it's got lumps in it, or if the paint is, you know, literally, you know, when you paint it on paint one stroke, you're getting all of your paint coming off your brush all at once. Then you know that the paint's just too thick, or you get globs. But if it's sort of runny, you know, that's about the right consistency for your paint. Along the arms. And on here. Do. You know, if anybody had ever said to me, "Oh, Fred, you know, one day you're going to run a YouTube channel on Dungeons and Dragons," I would have said, "Nah, that ain't going to happen." It's funny how things work out. Right. Okay. All right. So I've applied paint to most of my beer, and you can see, look, there's nothing special. You know, I'm not doing anything fancy, and I selected the beer specifically because there's not an awful lot you need to do. I mean, you put your brown on, maybe put another color over to pull out some definition, and then you just paint in the eyes and put the claws on and paint some teeth, and that's about it. All right. Let's see if we can get that paint to move. Okay. All right. There we go. I hope having a cozy stream with a few mates is rewarding for you. You know, Overlord, honestly, this is a lot more relaxed. All of my videos are like super complicated, and I've got to figure out how to make them not too complicated so that I won't up scaring people off. and so they make sense, and so that I, and always at the end of them, I've got to like, okay, so I've done the basics. Is there anything I can add so that somebody more experienced who hasn't, done a big search of sage advice or applied it in a particular way will get something out of it? That's a real pain in the butt sometimes, and they take a long time, particularly if I do like one a day, which is why I've been slowly increasing the difficulty or sticking to some of the simpler spells and rules and breaking them down into small parts. I'm painting my project today too. I could share if you like. Yeah, Overlord, by all means, share away. Not a problem. Usually when people put comments in a video, no problem, man. In the video, advertising their channel or something that they've got, I usually sort of like just delete it. Mainly because otherwise you just wind up being a platform for somebody else to do their advertising on, and that's really about it. I've had a lot of that. The chat deleted it. Okay, so what you can do is when this stream is over, the comments will come up, and you can put it in the comments and I'll find it. Okay, so that's not going to be a problem. Obviously you can't put in, I don't know, that's probably because of the settings that I've put on my live chat, and I'm new to this sort of thing, so I don't know how to change it. I probably just need to look around my little dashboard here, but anyway. Okay. I feel like he's mostly browned up. Alright, pop him off. So some are more brown than the others. There we go. Put that over there. Put my brush in there. And I'm going to do the same process again, but I really want a lighter brown, so I'm going to add some white in there, and it might come out a little greyish just to help make things stand out. Anyway, let's just make sure my brush is all clean off. Clean, clean, clean. There's my brush for mixing. Okay, so you can't post image links, and that makes sense. Yeah, but Overlord, you've told me about it. I've said yes to it. Put it in the comments after the live stream. I'll make sure it stays there. Okay? And one of the things I was thinking, I'm a small channel too. I don't have a lot of people watching my stuff, but I thought it would be really nice to do sort of like a focus video on some of the smaller channels and what they do. Some videos like that. Oh, Nozler's Marvelous Miniature. I can't get them in New Zealand. I want to get the Displacer Beast. What's wrong with the bases? Are they molded a bit funny? Alright, where's my paint? I'll move that out of the way. You guys can't see nothing while I'm too thin. Oh, okay. So that means you've got to take them off the base and put them on to another base. That's a bit more the size you want. So we've applied 2 layers of paint to our bear. We've got, they don't come glued to the base. Oh, okay. So you don't have to take it off the base. You can just glue it straight onto a different base. Well, that's a benefit. That's good news. I did a video on how to make large and huge or huger miniature bases out of wood, and you could do that same sort of thing for a medium-sized creature. You just need a smaller hole saw. I know other people have made things out of plastic. Now, if you can find yourself, find yourself some plastic and then just use a hole saw and cut it out that way. Okay, this is going to be awkward because once I drop my paint, I can't put it back into the container. That's awkward. Put it over there. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's mix this and see how this works. I've been meaning to do a video like that for ages, but it's just finding the time. I watched, is it WASD20, trying to make miniature bases out of, I think it was clay. And I was thinking, you know, that looks really hard and a little bit tricky. And I mean, not everybody's going to have a drill press, but you don't need to have a drill press to do this. You could just use a portable electric drill and a hole saw and just use some clamps. I will say though that you need to be really careful with hole saws because they can go out of control real fast. And you know, if you're trying to do fine work, particularly when you take the centerpiece out, as soon as you take the centerpiece out, it all goes to pot on you. Anyway, okay, so this is a sort of more reddy brown, and I'm going to leave that brush there because I want to mix it around a bit more. Close that up because it's Citadel paint, right? It's not a squeezy bottle, so I'm probably going to spill it and squeeze it back together. Okay, over there. All right, drop some white in since I want it lighter. And I think I'll drop it to the side. It doesn't seem to be working. I'm going to have to give this a bit of a shake. Shake, 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 shake. Should have done that with all of my paints. They all really should need a good shake. I think that's actually so thick. I don't know. It's just the white. There's nothing going to happen. It's just the white. Okay. Right. Let's add the white, and that ought to be enough, hopefully. So I want a lighter brown, so as I apply it, it actually looks like it's going to stand out. More, and maybe a bit more. I might get a bit more aggressive with how lighter I make it, because that last brown was actually quite dark. Anyway, so that's certainly lighter than it was before, but I don't really want to spend all day sticking brown paint on a miniature, so I'm going to stick more on there and just exaggerate it a bit more. So, jump in a step, you might say. Off to the side, there we go. Alright. Let's try that again. That's certainly lighter. I think that's about as light as it's going to get. So I'm just going to make sure I get my paint on before it'll start drying up. Okay, alright. Push you over there. Lean you there. Where am I lean you? I'll lean you about there. Okay, where is that brush? There it is. Hopefully it's clean. Dry it off. I think I'll turn it inside out. It's starting to get a bit gungy. I did actually bring another piece of paper, so if it starts getting out of control, I'll just grab the one that's sitting underneath my drink of water. So I want to make sure the brush is reasonably dry. Dry brushing is not much good if the brush is wet. I have to say that usually I wouldn't do this and dry it off like this, but I'm in a rush. Normally I would just wait, come back, have a drink, and then start again. Okay, let's give that a go. So Mr. Beer with slight adjustment in brown. I'm going to go with a more exaggerated brown, see if we can actually make it look like it's a brown beer. Right now it just looks like a black beer with a little bit of brown, which you might just be able to make out. How many people? I can't even tell from this window how many people are watching. It doesn't matter anyway. Okay. Grab my paint and 11 watching. Seriously, I honestly didn't think anybody would be interested in watching somebody paint miniatures. I thought watching somebody show the how to run a combat or how to use skills and Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so that's that looks more brown. That definitely looks like it's going to stand out. I think that's going to work out a lot better. Okay, all right, so I can just lightly brush over and it'll actually look like it's going brown. Should have done that the first time round. The transition could have been a lot quicker. Anyway. Okay, so brush that on. Yep. It should be starting to look brown now. It certainly looks brown to me. Okay, where are you? Give me some more. Do. Oh, too much. I don't want too much blobby stuff in there. Let's see if we just stroke it off a little bit. Leave my nose alone. Oh, a brown nose. Brown nose, black nose. Black nose. You know, I feel like I'm going to get myself into the poo if I'm running too long on this. If my partner comes and I'm still streaming, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. Sorry, I need to keep it down, don't I? Otherwise you can't see. You just see in the bottle now. Remember, neutral life, magnesium complete. Need it in your diet always. Earlier version of D&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so do I play the earlier versions of the game? I've played version 3.5. I had the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books. I played 4th edition for a little while. I'm playing 5th now. I don't use the rules, but I actually use the older adventures far more than I do any of the newer ones. I know that sounds terrible, but it's the reality, you know. I don't have a lot of time, and the older adventures are like 30 pages, 25 pages long. They run a few levels. They're easy to prepare. They've got a few sections in them usually where, they give advice and say, you can make up your own stuff here, which I'm kind of happy to do. So I prefer the older adventures, and I use Pathfinder adventures. Paizo actually does really good adventures, and truthfully, I think they should have stuck with doing adventures rather than game systems. I'm not saying that Pathfinder isn't a good game. It's just I just find it a little bit much, and in the end, I just used to hand my character creation to somebody else who could be bothered. I just don't like that sort of complexity in my game. I just want to play the game. I don't want to create characters all the time. Which is why I know a lot of people have been wondering, when am I going to do videos on how to create a character? And I haven't done that. It's like, how long can I get away with not doing that? It's like, that's really what's going on in my mind. And I know I need to do it at some point. But, some of the other channels that have done such a great job at doing character creation. I prefer Pathfinder and the older adventures, because they're short, and that makes a big difference in terms of prep time for anybody. Okay, the top of this thing is just looking a little, all right. There's a few places, just get the paint in there. Okay, all right. So that definitely looks a lot browner than it was before. We'll take him off. And I'll put him over by the light and grab another one. Let's stick this on. Oh, come on, stay. All right. Okay, Mr. Brush, where are you? Oh, look at it. This is the thing. My brush is going to be absolutely toast. Don't go and spend a lot of money on a dry brush. Spend as little money as you possibly can. And don't use your good brushes for dry brushing. That's a bad idea. Anyway. Alright, let's brush off some of that paint. Cool. And we'll stroke along the back. See how that works. Yep, okay, that's working out alright. Do-do-do-do. Da-da-da-da. When is this Dungeons and Dragons movie going to come out? You know, I was thinking about what would happen if another Dungeons and Dragons movie came out at the theatre and it was a piece of garbage, which is quite possibly could be. Would that help the hobby? And you know, I honestly think whether it's a good movie or a bad movie, it will help the hobby. It's just because it came out. It's just advertising. If it's a really good movie, it'll definitely boost the hobby huge. You know, it'll make a big difference to the number of people playing. But even if it's a bad movie, it's probably going to boost people's playing as well. Yeah. Come on. I want to get on to the details. It's taking too long. Anyway. Let's drop some more paint in there. Oh, brush off, brush off. So what I'm going to do, because I've got a little bit of paint here. Yeah, no press is bad press, but bad press is good press. Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, I didn't dry off the brush. Okay, all right, now I'm in trouble. Oop. Yeah, it's the younger generation. Yesterday I was writing up some instructions on how to run a game for really young kids, you know, using Dungeons and Dragons 5e, because I know a lot of people are like, oh well, you know, you can play this system because it's better for younger kids, but I mean, eventually you want them playing the game, right? And you can introduce them to something else, but you know, really what I want a system which can be used by anybody, adults, you know, tool it down, tool it up. That's where I think it needed to go. And so I was sitting there trying to come up with some ways of actually doing that. And I have to thank, is it Andrew Armstrong from Dawn Forge Cast, because he did a video about, he likes using the words wrong and rules that you had forgot to use or you should be using. And I was looking at it and I was like, you know, it's the perfect list of rules you can ditch when you're playing with really young kids. And I'm not talking about 12-year-olds, I mean really young kids. You can ditch all that stuff because it's bean counting, you know, it's not the fun stuff. Drop all that and you'll make the game so much simpler for them to play. Anyway, I think Mr. Bear is good enough. We'll pull that off, plonk that over there. And I've got number 3. Oh my gosh. This is going to be impossibly hard to cut. I'm not going to be able to cut it. I'm going to have to just leave it as is. It'll be huge. It's like, what, must be at least an hour long now. Processing by what is it, YouTube is going to take a long time, and then when people find out how long I was running it at the very beginning to get set up, I think it was like anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes. Oh my god, I'm going to have all sorts of comments having to deal with people who are in a bad mood. Oh dear. Anyway, paint along the back. See, that's coming off pretty easily. It's not doing a piece of cake. This is why I like the dry brushing technique, even though it's not, you know, perfect and so forth. Anybody can do it. You know, what you should do is, if you're going to paint a whole lot of miniatures, is you show your kids how to do it. they'll be right into it, and they just let them paint all the miniatures, just give them the paint and explain what to do, show them what to do. They'll just copy. That's if you've got kids, that is. If you don't have kids, you'll be doing it yourself. And if you like painting, then you won't be using the kids to do it. You'll do it because that's what you're going to help reduce your stress, and that'll be your hobby. Anyway, I'm going to be really fast and rough now. I've had enough of painting brown, and they do look like they are essentially coming out brown now. I feel like I can, come here. Oh, off. Okay, and the more brown you want it, the more paint you put on. That's really the trick, and that's, I think, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start applying a lot more in certain locations. Not the dark underbelly, because nobody's going to see that, but they're definitely going to see the top of his head and his back and his front, and those are the parts that need to be the darkest. So we've given them a good flick. There we go. Oh. This thing's a good idea, but it gets in the way when I need to get underneath. Something smaller would have been the smarter idea. Okay, alright. Okay, let's have a look. Let's see if my eyes are actually picking up anything. Well, that certainly looks brown to me. We'll pop him off, just like that. Grab the next one, and he's brown, but because I've got a little bit of paint left, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a lighter color again, and that's just so that I get more definition. And normally you would do things in layers even when you're dry brushing. So if I just plant him over here for now. Oh, just keep zooming in and I'll move it out of the way. Okay. Drop of paint. Shake this thing. I don't know what it is about the white. A Chardonnay miniature streams. Yeah, what you mean painting them? Painting the miniatures from the board game. I mean, if you people want me to do more of them, I will. I don't have a problem with that. I'm fine. I just don't know. Yeah, really? How many people are watching right now? Is it just you? This interface that I've got in front of me, it's impossible for me to tell what's going on exactly. 5. Okay. All right. Yep. All right. I'll do it. Not a problem. I'll do some more. It'll have to wait till the Saturday or the Sunday. Mostly the Saturdays, because Sunday's supposed to be my partner's time, you know, where I hang out with her and go and do things. And we don't really get to see each other very often anyway. Okay, so I feel like that is definitely lighter. And that, I'm not even going to bother trying to clean off the brush because it doesn't matter. I don't have to stick it into some paint or anything like that. I'm just going to dry it like so. You can see a big mark all over my piece of paper. And we are going to apply some more paint to our bear, but this time it's going to be lighter. And you know, when you want the detail to really pop, a really small amount of just straight white will help too. That can really make a big difference. Okay, so let's see if this works. If it doesn't, oh okay, alright, it's not too bad. Alright, so you need to, guys, if I stick my miniature or the camera's not in the right place, or you know, put my hand in the way, you need to give me a message and say, Fred, can't see, move it out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to be really, really aggressive now with this lighter colour, because otherwise it's just going to look a little just too dark, and I want more of a brown beer rather than a black with tinges of brown. And this brown looks more brown than all the other colours, if you ask me. Okay, oop, too much. Come off. Okay. Doot 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 doot. This is always the thing, you know. I used to spend hours painting miniatures. I forget everything. And I'm too far away from the camera, so I'm bringing it forward. I keep working myself back towards where it's comfortable for me. Sorry, guys. Or gals, if there's anybody out there. Okay. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, alright. I think that's good enough. It's given the impression that he is actually a brown beer. Put him over here, grab the next one. This is going to be really quick because each layer doesn't need to be quite as thick. You can be a bit more sparing with it. Okay, here we go. And brush, brush, brush. It's always the underneath. Can't get to it. I like to smoke pot when I paint miniatures. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to really talk about that one because I work in a drug and alcohol rehab. There's one area I have issues with, and it's mainly because of my history, you know, my experiences with it as a kid and family and so forth. So, a drug and alcohol rehab. Yeah, we'll try to keep our pot smoking to a minimum. Okay. I should do more painting videos. They are great to listen to when you're doing something else. Nah, it's alright, Comic Book Jedi. It's alright. Eater of Crabs? Yeah, look, if people want me to do them, I will. I just feel like, you know, I don't want people to think that playing Dungeons and Dragons is all about miniatures, and because I got so many of them, I'm happy to do that. They actually get more used for my videos than they do in my games sometimes, because I do more videos than I actually run games. Yeah, don't worry about it, Comic Book Jedi. It's cool. Alright, let's smooth that one off. And again, the lighter colour. Ah, stick! Isn't blue tag just awesome? Stick anything to anything. As long as it's not too heavy, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, if everybody thinks that the only thing that makes Dungeons and Dragons about miniatures, then, you know, it's such a prohibitive cost. Miniatures are so expensive, which is why I've been wanting to sort of do some videos on how to make and sculpt your own. And I mean, you don't have to be a sculptor to do that. Just the basics. And I mean, getting post attack is best. Yeah, post attack's pretty good too. I'm actually using, I think this is a power tack, and it's just cheap, nasty stuff from China. You know, it's essentially the same sort of thing, and chances are the only thing they've changed is maybe the compounds, a bit more of the sticky stuff in there, or whatever it is that makes it actually tack on. Alright, okay. I feel like the brown is done, and more brown would just make it look brown and get rid of all the black areas, so I don't want to do that. So I'm pulling this thing off, sticking that over there, and I just want to work with white, so I'm going to just clean off my brushes, get rid of that container. clean that off as well. So we've only used essentially two colours, black and brown, and although we have sort of lightened up our brown as we went, that's all we really did, you know, and we combined our blue, yellow and red to create our brown, and then use your white to lighten it up, or you can use your yellow, but I feel like white is a better way of lightening things up. Alright, okay, I think we're going to use another tray because this thing is definitely brown. It's got brown paint everywhere, so I'll grab another one. Ta-da! Okay, I need a drink of water. I've been talking for too long. Okay, let us move on. This is what that fine tipped brush was all for. In the end, we need something that will actually allow us to put in our claws and our teeth and our eyes, and that's what the fine brush is for. Now I've got this one, I've also got this one over here, and it's a bit cheaper, but truthfully I don't think it's going to be much different. I bought those blue brushes as a packet, and I think it was like $3 New Zealand. So if you're in Canada or North America or even the UK, it's probably going to be cheaper for you. Do you know what I mean? New Zealand is so far away from everything, the freight costs is huge. Anyway, and here's our brush here. So we're going to wet that. And the only reason I'm wetting my brush is so that, oh, this is too messy. Ditching that, moving it out of the way, grabbing the other piece of paper. You want something clean, because we're dealing with white, so I don't want to contaminate it. Okay, so I'll try that again. Alright, so there, that's pushed the bristles together by making it just a little bit wet. Same thing with the other one. Okay, that's pushed the bristles together as well. So I've got a nice pointy tip, and I need my white, which is here, and I've got to give my white a shake because it seems to separate the most. Okay, alright. Let's put some out. This is probably the wateriest white I've seen in a long time, so I'm not putting out much. I'm literally just putting out a blob because I don't expect to have to use much. And normally I wouldn't use it as thick as this. Truthfully, I would normally water it down just a fraction because I feel like it is a little bit thick now. It's actually gone together a little bit, but I'll just do a test run somewhere where it's not quite so obvious, maybe on the bottom of one of the beers, so I can see what the effect will be. Alright, post it, tack, move you around. Well, the camera hasn't zoomed in and out too much, but I have noticed it does change. I honestly, I turned on the lock on my camera, but as soon as I go to live stream, it's like everything, all my settings are just gone. Okay, alright, so, oh, this is going to be hard. My eyes are already straining to find where the little claws are, and now I've got to make sure that you can see what I'm doing as well. Okay, here we go. Let's apply our first bit of paint. Okay, let's try that again. I feel like I'm just going to stroke it really, really thin, and then come back over it again. Yeah, that's better. I've got to move my camera. I've got to move myself so you can see what's happening. Okay, so I'm essentially dry brushing, and it's just picking up the detail so you get the white claws. Okay, a little bit less. Try that again. Okay, I'll stroke that again. very lightly. Okay, oh, I missed a little bit, a bit too far over. Okay, I'm going to bring this forward. The camera's probably going to freak out when I do that, so you can see what's happening with the claws. Can you see that? You can see they're just starting to be picked up. And that's all I need to do, nothing more. So I'm going to do that same thing on the other side, and then the paws at the front, and then we're going to start tackling the teeth. If I talk less while I'm doing this, it's because I'm concentrating. My eyes are old. Less paint. There we go. That has almost got it. Okay, alright, that's good enough. Just going to clean my brush off, and then I'll start on the top. Oh, come here. Okay, let's try that again. Small amount of paint, get a nice tip to it, and we'll go for a harder spot this time, somewhere where it's a bit more obvious. And the claws are just at the tips. Oh my gosh, here we go. Hopefully you can see. Too much paint, off it comes. I can apply my white a couple of times to build up the colour, just so that there's small amounts of paint coming off at one particular time rather than all at once. And now the other side, the other paw, just there. Alright, putting my elbow down, I'm shaking around too much. Didn't come out quite the way I'd hoped, actually. Let's have another go. That's better. Okay, alright, next one, other side. Oh, come here. Some of the details are not perfectly sculpted, so when my paint comes off onto it, it doesn't look fantastic. And where's the claw and where's the paw? Running across it has certainly helped and worked out a bit better. I feel like there's a claw just underneath there. Okay, alright. You painted Castle Ravenloft miniatures a few months back. Actually, I bought that box myself. Yeah, I bet it does make them stand out. It's got some good heroes. I mean, those D&D boxed games have really nice miniatures in them, considering how cheap they are. Okay, all right. I'm going to give the teeth a go now, and they are even smaller. So I'm going to have to be really careful. All right, I think this time I'm definitely resting the container on the ground rather than trying to hold it up, and see if I can just touch the teeth. Oh my gosh. Yep. Oh well, let's certainly put a lot of white paint there. Is it? I think it's Blanco. He does a lot of videos on cheap miniatures, and he paints a lot of his stuff. So he repaints them all the time, and I like his channel. It's great. No, I'm not using the macro lens. I'm using the standard lens because that macro lens causes me so many problems. And I know somebody's asking me or wondering, well, who am I talking to? It's because even when I'm not on Facebook, it sends me messages. It's not helpful. Okay. Alright, that's not too bad. There isn't a lot of really clear detail to pick up on the teeth. Okay, so I'll bring it closer. So nothing fancy, but you can see now it looks like he's got teeth. He can bite you. And our next thing, this is the one thing I don't like. It's doing the eyes. Miniatures that have eyes, no miniature should have eyes. Then I don't have to paint them. Anyway, let's get that done. Wash that out. And I'll clean that off. And I'm probably going to shift to the better brush, the Citadel brush for the finer detail on the eyes. Probably should have done it with the claws as well, but that brush didn't seem that bad to me. It seemed alright. Okay, so we just need to just pop the eye out, and it's going to be tricky. There we go. Alright, that's the first one. This is the hassle, when you're painting an eye, it's kind of supposed to be slightly long, and getting a small brush to paint a long stroke on something that's not flat isn't exactly that easy. Okay, so the first eye is worked out alright. The other eye looks a little bit like I put just slightly too much paint on it. I don't know if I can actually get that paint off, but I'll see if I can sort of brush it away a bit. I know. We'll grab some paint that's brown and we'll just touch it and see if we can clean it away. Nah, live with it. This is the problem, trying to be a perfectionist. Never going to be a perfect job anyway. Okay, alright, so I've got that. Now I've got to stick a black dot in there. Ugh. Seriously? Black dot? Okay. Alright, black. Move you over. Make sure, of course, that I put my black away from my white. It doesn't need to be much. What do I think about dungeon tiles? Okay, so the ones that they came in the pack for Dungeons and Dragons 4E that they produced years ago. I truthfully felt they were right if they could interlock, but they don't interlock. You make your own. Seems sensible. I like the dungeon tiles and the board games because they're jigsaw puzzled. You know, they are linkable. They don't come apart and separate, so you can lay out an area pretty easily with them. I think they're most sensible. Whereas those packs where they're just those flat tiles, there's no interlocking going on. Those are like the worst idea under the sun because they're just a pain. They take up a lot of space. And I know that sounds weird, but they do. They take up a lot of space for what they are. And there's a lot of setup and hassle. Well, I've got an eye there. The Dawn Forge, tiles, I have. Kind of prohibitive in cost though. They're really expensive. I know, what is it? I think Matthew Mercer uses quite a few of those, and there's a few other people I've seen on the internet. You like the tiles that use hallways, but I use DIY rooms and chambers for bigger areas. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Keep forgetting you're going to get a nice bit of paint that's not drying up to get that little eye. Well, it's pretty rough. I feel like I should redo it. Oh, that's better. That's better. Okay, alright. I can live with that. And I'll just grab a bit of white over here. Just tidy up the corner. Yeah, that one looks alright. That eye looks... No, I don't like that one. I'm doing it again. Come on, brush, point. I feel like I definitely need to make that eye, just the white of it, just slightly larger. Oh, it looks a bit weird now. Hang on. See if I can put black on it, make it tidy it up. No, come on. Do it again. Okay. Yep. Good enough. Happy enough with that. Nothing fancy. I'm not a super duper fantastic painter or anything, but I now have a bear that's painted, that's brown. It's got some teeth and some claws and some eyes, and yeah, it's ready to go. Just need to let it dry out. So I think I'm going to finish here because I've been going for a while now, and I'll be back next weekend. I don't know what I'll be doing. I might be doing more painting if people want me to do that, or I might do like an hour-long tutorial on Dungeons and Dragons combat or something like that. The camera didn't seem to be popping back and forth too much while I was doing this, so that seemed to work out all right. And as long as people don't mind everything being sort of on a slight angle rather than directly, pointing towards me, I think that'll work out all right. So if you found this helpful or informative, please share, like, and subscribe. Nah, I'm not even going to bother saying that. Forget about it. Don't worry about subscribing. If you want to watch the videos, that's cool. Make a comment below if you have anything to sort of add, whether you're painting your own miniatures or you like these sort of things. And don't forget, if you wanted to post that link that you tried to post before, you can post it. I won't delete it. You already told me about it. I'll make sure it actually comes out of the spam folder. Until next time. keep rolling those 20s.